Hello and welcome to this special forum of Potomac Local News on the state of Manassas City Public Schools. I'm Uriah Kaiser. I'm the publisher of Potomac Local News. And joining us on the call is Caitlin Meisner. She is the Manassas Local editor, and she is going to talk a little bit about her reporting throughout the year. She's been watching Manassas City Public Schools closely, covering the school board and the discussions that the school board has been having. And so we will get to her in a minute. Caitlin, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Uriah. It's great to meet all of you and happy to see all of you tonight.
Well, thank you for coming on, Caitlin. I do appreciate you being here. I also want to introduce everyone in the room. We are joined by many bright faces this evening. Many of them are running for a seat on the school board, one of 4 open seats in the November 2024 election on the school board, and one incumbent member of the school board who is running for the city council. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to go around the room and introduce ourselves, and we'll start with that incumbent school board member who has been in the trenches on the school board, doing the work day in, day out. We'll start with her, Robin Williams. Robin? And I believe you are muted, so if you go ahead and...
I kept it muted because I heard a dog coming up the stairs. Sorry. Yes, I've been on the school board for 8 years. My name is Robin Williams, and I have been inspired to run for city council for many reasons, but really do want to make sure there's institutional knowledge at the city level, at the city council level. So that's really why I'm running. That's one reason. One of my main reasons.
Well, welcome, and thank you for being here. We'll go around the room now. We'll start with Javanese Haley. If you want to introduce yourself, Ms. Haley, and you're running for school board, so let's talk about that. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Javanese Haley, and I'm a candidate for Manassas City School Board. I am a veteran math teacher with over 20 years experience and a former MCPS teacher. And so I'm running because after my experiences of being a teacher in the school and having worked at a school where my daughter attended, combined with my experience in Northern Virginia and DC, I feel like my experience is needed on the school board, you know, having that teacher perspective and what we can do differently and better.
Ms. Haley, thanks for being here this evening. Ali Forkel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ali Forkel. I'm running for school board because I'm also a former MCPS teacher. I worked at Osborne. I also graduated from Osborne, so I'm a graduate who came home. I worked with math and our special education students. I'm also a parent of an MCPS student, and I'm running to make a difference while I took time off to have my 7th-month-old.
Well, congratulations on that, Ms. Forkel. Thank you for being here this evening. Dana Jackson Miles.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Miles. I am a Manassas City School Board candidate as well, and I'm excited just to run. Being a mom of a MCPS student was one of the reasons why I really was concerned about the status of our schools, and I saw the need for teachers and moms to come on board to figure out the problems that we have so that my son can continue in Manassas City and be able to graduate as an Osborne grad. That's my goal. And I'm also an ESOL teacher with a lot of experience working with our population that we have. So I have that experience as well, administering the WIDA and the SOL test. So I know that background. So hopefully I'm able to bring that experience as a mom and a teacher.
Thank you, Ms. Miles. Mady Whitesell.
It's actually Mighty.
Mighty, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. You wouldn't know. So my name, it's Spanish, and so many people, will not know how to pronounce. So it's Mighty, like Mighty Mouse. That was the nickname my mother-in-law found for me. So I'm running for school board because I think it's time to have parents who are looking to make a difference. So I have 2 students, one in Mets and another son in Osborne. I'm also a longtime resident and volunteer. I have been serving on different boards. And I also have a corporate strategist background. And so I think it's important to have parents who are data-driven, who know the community, who represent the community, who speak the language, and I think that can make a difference. So I think that for the longest time, our community has been on the side, and I'm hoping that I earn their vote and their support so I can represent and, bring the concerns to the school board.
Thank you, Ms. Whitesell. My first name is Uriah, and I've been called all kinds of weird names. Mariah Carey being the least of the worst of the names I've been called over the years. So thank you all for being here this evening. It's a very important discussion where we're going to have about some very important topics facing our city. I want to go now to Caitlin, who has been covering the city school board since she came on Potomac Local in December of 2023. Caitlin, you have been reporting on these meetings. You've been combing through SOL scores. You have the finger on the pulse of the community and what's happening with the school division. So if you would, kind of recap us here and where we stand here as we look at an election here in just a few weeks, where 4 seats are on the Manassas City School Board are open. And we have seen significant declines in the Virginia Standards of Learning scores for the city just in the past year.
Yeah, thank you, Uriah. Yeah, so like Uriah said, I came on in December 2023, and my first story was about Metz Middle School. And I first started looking at how the SOL scores have declined. And just hearing those conversations between the school board members and hearing community members being very worried about that, which has, persisted today. And I've also talked a lot about and reported on the Jennie Dean Elementary, the new facility that is being built, and those conversations between the school board and city council, and how sometimes it got a little bit heated, kind of going over the different plans that were available, and what to do with the old existing building, what it was going to be used for, whether it was even, useful to be used by the city. And Uriah also has reported on the amended grading scale that happened over the summer. And yeah, I have also talked about, at least in the past couple of months, the SOL scores declining, and just representing a broader challenge within the school district, that things aren't really improving, but have actually declined over the past year.
Well, let's start there, because in September, you reported on those SOL scores decline, and that really raised an alarm across the district. When those numbers came in, there were very few people looking at those and talking about those, and we reported on those. Well, you reported on those. When I say we, that was you. So walk us through what that process there and what you found out.
Yeah, so I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I did notice that Manassas is falling way behind the state averages, which, I know that standardized tests don't always tell the story of the whole school system or even an entire school, but it is a concerning thing to see that we're so far behind just the state average, and that we've declined over the past year from 2022 to 2023, and then 2023 and 24. So just, sorry, my cat is joining the call. Just seeing those was concerning to me, and I know that I had talked to a lot of you about those SOL scores and what you guys were thinking of that. So yeah.
And we have instead of those scores and academic performance this year in 24, we've heard a lot more talk about what you talked about earlier about Jennie Dean and buildings and infrastructure and what to use. And we've also heard earlier this year about the purchase of the building at 8700 Centerville Road for the school division to have its headquarters located there. So we've talked a lot about building up infrastructure, buying buildings and things and places, but not a lot about these numbers and performance. So when it comes to Jennie Dean, where are we now? It looks like we're getting a school at this point, where we are getting that Jennie Dean school. They are moving forward with that project.
Yes, they are.
Okay, well, good to know. I'm glad they've got that figured out. And then Metz, Caitlin, you have covered Metz. It looks like back earlier in January, when you came on and you started reporting, they started to ring the bells there about the SOL, about the performance decline in January. And they were talking about they were saying students need immediate help, and that sparked discussions about how were they going to help the students. And there were talk about possible interventions, and some called for some significant reforms, as you've noted. But others say that they wanted more targeted support because of the language barrier issues, and it's not fair to paint, as you alluded to earlier. Some of the districts say it's not fair to paint the entire school division or an entire school as failing when you have so many language barriers and language challenges in there. So you reported on that. So it looks like we've been talking about METS, or at least the school. We've been reporting on METS for a good portion of the year.
Yeah, METS has been always a topic of discussion, something that I've always heard about when I first started here. That, like I said, was my first story and something that I immediately jumped in on. And it's definitely been a topic of discussion and something that I've always thought about, and watching the progression of METS, especially at this last school board meeting.
So we have two schools in the city that are not fully accredited at last check. They are operating, I believe it's Osborne High, which is the city's only high school, and METS, which is an intermediate school, middle school, and both of those schools are operating off a pandemic era partial accreditation. And so there has been very little talk about that amongst the broader set of candidates who are running. We are told that there is a plan to address all of these failures, if you want to call them that. Declining SOLs, non-accreditation. I think that you could probably chalk it up to use that word failure. But the current sitting school board was invited to come on and participate in this discussion. We invited every sitting school board member and every candidate running for school board. And thank you all for coming on this evening. And so with all of that put out there, all of that said, why are the schools in this state? Why are we seeing declining SRL scores at this time? Ms. Williams, you want to start?
Sure. COVID most definitely impacted our school. You can imagine if we've got 70% Hispanic, 70% Hispanic population, 50% EL population, and to take the kids, the governor at the time decided to close schools, but we closed schools for an extremely long time. Even when the governor said it was safe to go back, you had to go back under certain circumstances and rules. Our board as a whole chose not to get our students back in school. And in my view, that was problem number one. Kids have to be in school to learn. So I think that's where it initially stemmed from. And then trying to play catch up from there has been extremely difficult. But if you would ask me where the root cause was, that's where it was. Because prior to that, we had all schools accredited for some time after I got elected. But that's where it all stems from. Of course, we can go on and talk about many other things, but I feel like that's the root cause, and we're really trying to excel from there and catch up our learning gaps.
On the school board, and when these numbers came in, I mean, obviously they had to review them, and I'm sure they put out a memo to school board members saying what they are, and I know the school board has been looking at hearing presentations from principals. I know they just heard one from METS, and we reported on that, and from Baldwin. I think at the next meeting, the school board's set to be briefed from the principal from Osborne. But what's the mood at the school division right now? What's the mood over there? Are they talking about this? Are they upset about this? Are they just not focusing on this and just trying to focus on what is working? We hear a lot about the CTE program, the Career and Technical Education program, and we hear a lot about what's positive about the school division. Let's talk about and from elected officials in the city. Let's focus only on the positive and talk about positive things. So is the school division even talking about this?
The school division is absolutely talking about this, and they are really working hard to address everything. They're trying to get all the students up to par in learning. I know you've heard a lot about the cycle that works, that's basically the learning cycle, which it works very well in industry. It's going to work also very well in the classroom, putting together these learning teams to try and help teachers help each other, help and support students, have breakout sessions, for lack of a better word, really trying to focus on different skill sets on children. So yes, I think the work is it's churning. I think the mood, from what I hear other teachers say, I'm not talking at the school board level, and anything I talk about here today is just my own personal viewpoint. I cannot speak for the board. But I think a lot of teachers are really starting to embrace all the changes, because the changes just aren't coming from us, the school board or administration. It's coming from the state. And I think the mood is, we're doing something. Youngkin came in and got everybody back in school. Youngkin came in and said, you know what, the very first thing we need to work on is attendance. So now that's been worked on, and teachers are having to pick up the phone, call parents. I think more and more students, especially at the younger grades, it's working. A lot of these issues that the governor is implementing is working at the school level. And from what I'm hearing from teachers is that they really appreciate all the work that's happening, because it's making their jobs a little harder, but there are improvements. Now, I'm talking about the younger grades. I realize Metz and Osborne High School, it's a little challenging trying to get the older kids. Their accountability level is just low. We don't have high enough accountability for the older kids. But as the mood as a whole, I think is improving. It's really improving. They're seeing the efforts, and I believe that they are truly embracing all these changes.
Caitlin, feel free to jump in at any point and ask a question anytime. Ms. Haley, I'd like to know, you've been in the classroom, you and Ms. Workel have been in the classroom, you know what some of the challenges are. So enlighten us, talk to us about what these teachers are facing now in 2024, post-COVID, and especially in Manassas, that, we saw post-COVID, we saw some improvement in the SOL scores, but now we're reverting. We're going back the other way. So, what challenges are these teachers facing? And you are on mute.
Thanks. When I worked at Metz in 2019, right before the pandemic, I came into MCPS with 16 years of experience. I had taught in Southeast DC. I taught in private school, public school. And so I was a seasoned teacher. But what I experienced from day one, there was just an absolute lack of accountability. The kids were allowed to do whatever they wanted. There was just chaos. I can't think of another word. So every day you walked into that building feeling like something was going to break down at any moment. And so that was a scary feeling for me as a teacher, because there was not consistency. And as far as kids' academic levels, I was teaching Math 7 that year. And when we did our inventories to kind of assess where kids were, I had 7th graders who were on 2nd grade level, 3rd grade level. And so as a teacher, for me, that puts me in an unbelievable bind, because I can't catch a kid who's on 2nd grade level up to 7th grade. I can maybe work with a kid who's on 4th grade level and get them up a couple of years. But, the gaps were huge in one class, having kids who are on 2nd grade level, kids who are actually ready to learn the 7th grade material. And then that coupled with behaviors, kids just they figured out very quickly that they could do whatever they wanted and there were no consequences. And so that created another big challenge.
What about turnover? One of the things that struck me this week when we were reporting on the Metz situation, there's a brand new principal at Metz now, which is different from the principal that was there in April. And so, Ms. Forcal, when you're in the city schools, do you see turnover as a problem when you were teaching?
Yes, actually. So, we downplay it because as a whole, we only lose about 20% of our teachers a year if it's only 100 teachers. But the 20% is a big number. And please correct me if I'm wrong. But from the data I gathered, it's about 20%. And so it's hard for our kids. We talk about our ESOL population and our behavioral population, and studies show that when our students have consistency with the same people and they're seeing familiar faces, they actually do better. I started an alternative school, and having those familiar faces and those safety people along with consequences allows our students to succeed. And it broke my heart. I left, to expand my family. And then some of my best friends left Mets because they just couldn't handle a third principal in that short amount of time. And we're losing our great staff that's helping our kids. And to me, that's a problem because our kids come first. So we need to be able to keep these teachers so we can keep our kids succeeding.
I want to ask about parental involvement, because for years we have been covering the school division, and we like sometimes we like to preview the agenda of the upcoming school board meeting when we find something that's really interesting, and our hope is never to change the outcome of the vote or persuade people to vote one way or another. Our goal is to just, hey, this is what's coming up at the school board. We think it's interesting. Maybe you might too. Maybe you'll come out. Here's when citizen comment time is. Here's where they're going to take a public hearing and you can come out and speak about it. And we never really see people show up to the meeting to vote. It's and it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because the Manassas City School Board, is compared to other meetings that Caitlin and I cover, they're very short. Prince William County Board of Supervisors, they can go on for 7, 8, 15, 22 hours, but never the Manassas School Board. But on the flip side of that coin, it's very disheartening because you don't get to hear the community come and speak before the board and into the microphone and give their sense. So when we look at parental involvement in the school division, where are we with that, Ms. Miles, and how could that be improved?
I would say definitely having parents being involved, even as a teacher, is so pivotal. When we look at other districts, I've worked in Prince William, I'm working in Prince William now, and in Manassas Park. When you have that parent involvement, it changes the playing field for our kids because it's the teacher, the parent, and the student all buying into one plan, one goal. I know as a parent, one thing that I always do is I make sure my kids are on target with their grades. I have alerts that show me what they're doing every week. And I think if that's not something that we're doing or we allow in Manassas City, that's something that we need to encourage, so that parents can actually see how their kids are doing. I know that they just came up with an app, which has been really good because then I can see, okay, this is what's going on. But last year, I will say with my son, I didn't know anything that was going on in the school, and the communication was very, very bare. I had no idea that, my son, what he got on his SOL score. And then when I reached out to the teacher, no one responded. I've talked to other parents who had the same issue when they had an issue with the teacher. It took them forever to get even a conference with the teacher and with the admin. So I know that we definitely need to do better on that with the parent communication on both sides, making sure parents are involved, but also making sure the teachers are communicating with the parents so they know how their kid is performing. And they don't find this out at the end of the year and say, oh my goodness, my son has failed. Instead, we should be communicating consistently. This year, I will give a shout out to the teachers my son has. Both of them consistently give a weekly email about what they're teaching and what's going on in the class. And that has been a breath of fresh air. And I think that should be mandated. I know as a teacher, I have to give a newsletter. My principal requires us to do that. We have to give one every couple weeks so that our parents, and I have all Spanish speaking students. So it has to be bilingual. So that excuse can't be there. It can't be, well, my parents aren't going to read it anyway. We should have that information for parents, and it should be consistent.
Ms. Whitesell, you have a BA in business administration. And when we look at the performance of the city schools, I mean, it is directly tied to the types of businesses that want to move to Manassas, the ones that are already here, and there are some great businesses that are already here. You could probably name them with you have the Microns of the world and the Electras and all the growth that's happening around the airport. But when we're reporting the news and reporting these, and these companies are seeing these headlines that the school division is regressing when it comes to performance, and these schools are not fully accredited, what message does that send to the business community about Manassas having a talented workforce?
It's not positive, of course. And that's why I think it's important to have leadership that wants to improve, the workforce. Because at the end of the day, I think that when we look at goals, we should be thinking about the quality of workforce that is coming from Osborne. And so for me, as a business owner, as a mom, community, person, I think that we have to change the way we are being perceived. And we also have to do a lot more when it comes down to changing maybe the skills and the preparation for our kids. I met with some of the high school students, and I was asking them, if you had the option or the power to change anything, what would you do? And so some of the questions or some of the responses that I heard for that question was that the CTE program is great, but it doesn't really cover all the interests for the kids. And then the other piece that I heard is that not everybody wants to go to college, right? And so maybe we should be trying to find other alternatives for those kids. And so when they get to high school and senior year, they can use their time wisely, for other things. And so I think that there has to be a big change. And, we should start looking at, from that end goal, which is how do we prepare these kids for the workforce? And then starting that plan, backwards. I think that right now we're more worried about SOLs and what's happening short term rather than planning long term. Maybe there is other discussions Ms. Williams can talk about, but I don't think I have seen, that long-term vision, for the kids. At least it's, the discussions right here in the school board are all about, how do we fix the problem that comes up? And so there's a more reactive rather than a proactive approach from the board.
We keep hearing from the board and from members of the city council that there is, in fact, a plan to fix this. Don't worry, we've got this. There's a plan. So as you understand it, and Ms. Williams, you're on the school board, what is the plan as you understand it to address some of these immediate, these things that are getting headlines that we're talking about tonight?
Well, from my perspective, the plan is the cycle that works. They implemented that 2 years ago. It was told to us from the very beginning. It's a very complex plan with a lot of moving parts, and it would take at least 2 years to get teachers on board to understand their role in this plan. I think I really think that it is the right plan from everything I've read. I'm going to just share my personal viewpoint, which is we can have a great plan, but if you built this plan on what I consider to be a foundation of cards instead of a nice stone foundation, which is the grading policy and the very liberal deadline policy, I think that's where our core issue is. And we can plan and do great things, but if students don't have expectations in the classroom, they're not going to meet your expectations if you don't have them. So that is my point of view.
Let's talk about that grading policy, because we've done a fair amount of reporting on that this year. The policy is in place. It allows students to retake tests for at least twice. I think they amended the policy. I think there used to be unlimited retakes until they got the grade they wanted, and they have up until the end of I believe it's the semester to submit assignments. You know, I don't know, you know, as a boss myself, as I manage several people, I don't know if I give them 3 or 4 months to hand in their work. I don't know if my business would function very well if I did that, but that is the policy at the Manassas City Public Schools. And let's talk about that. You know, if you're elected, and I'll throw this out to the candidates, if you're elected, how will you address that?
I think that would be one of the first things that we would have to do another vote on. That policy hasn't gone far enough to set our kids up for success. So, you know, I would like to see, and I envision a policy that gets rid of that 50% altogether and let our kids truly get what they earn so they can learn the productive struggle and make the connection between what their work is as an input and then the resulting output of their grade. Because right now their grades are highly inflated and they're picking and choosing what to do and what not to do, what they can skip altogether because they figure out, oh, I can still pass if I choose not to do, you know, 5 or 6 things out of the quarter.
And then when you say highly inflated, are we also, because the grading scale is highly inflated, are we also highly inflating the number of graduates that walk through at the end of the year?
I would say that we're not preparing our kids for college if they're going to college or the workplace, because clearly if you're giving them multiple deadlines, they're not going to be prepared for the workplace. That's not the way that works. And also for college, I actually talked to a student who graduated from Manassas City, and he told me that, you know, I had to do nothing really to get my degree or my high school diploma, but he knows that he's going to have to work even harder to, you know, work in college. So I think that it's sad because a lot of our kids know this, but yet we're giving them this, you know, 50%, and they realize that it's not good for them. So if a student knows it's not good for them, why are we not understanding that it's not good for them?
So, so if you were elected to school board, this would be one of the things that you would take on, Miss Haley, and it sounds like Miss Miles as well. What are some other things that you see as the way forward for the school division? What are some of the things that you would change? I'll throw this out there to Miss Workell and Miss Whitesell. What are some of the other things that you would change?
So, you know, for me as a former teacher, we have a lot of programs in Manassas City, and that is amazing for our staff and our students. However, sometimes as a teacher, you feel very inundated with how many things that you're supposed to do now. I had, you know, and they're not effective. The more we have, the less effective they become because I'm not utilizing them to their full potential. So for the kids, if they're utilizing 4 different programs instead of focusing on 2 that could get us from here to here, that's just more they have to juggle, right? So really looking at all the programs we have, getting the teacher input, what works and what doesn't. And, you know, we talk about a cycle that works. I was one of the first teaching staff to go through that. And I think it's the luck of the draw. It's the luck of the draw of the team that you're with and the admin you have, because if my counterparts don't buy in, I'm still doing all the work, but now I have extra meetings to go to instead of just being able to solo plan. So we talk about this grading floor was supposed to be equitable for all the students in grading. And that's not really what equitable grading is, right? If you all know the picture with the 3 boxes, that's equitable. So grading a student who might be lower on a 4th grade level, but they're in an algebra class, if they can at least get to where I need them, I'm going to help them with that grade, versus a student who's already above grade level. I'm going to, you know, they're going to be graded a little different. That is equitable grading, not giving everybody a free 50. And right now we're using benchmark advance in the elementary schools per the state. And we have just expected our elementary teachers to do these lessons, and the rigor in these books are amazing. But what we're missing are, you know, for lack of a better word, we're missing those progress goals. So if our goal is to be here by the end of the year, we are now missing those benchmarks to help our teachers help our students. And that's something I would really like to look at, to give our teachers the time to digest this stuff and get used to it. As a parent, even when they changed the grading policy this year, it was after the school year started, and I was given what my daughter's grades would be. And then I got sent home a different paper 2 weeks later because we were behind on getting the grading policy to the teachers prior to the kids starting. And to me, I just want everything to be effective and transparent and clear on time to help our teachers, students, and parents.
For me, I would say, besides the grading policy and what others talk about, it would be having a lot more data around the absenteeism. You know, that's another factor that contributes to, you know, the accreditation. So I know that that was a voted decision, and, you know, unfortunately we don't have that, you know, opportunity to see how the schools are trending. So being a person of numbers, I think that we have to see numbers, and we also need to understand what is happening. Why are kids not in school? You know, is it a cultural thing? Is it maybe mental health issue? You know, and so I think I would like to see a lot more data, and not just hear that, yes, we're addressing it, which is great. But, you know, as a community member and as a parent, I don't know what the problem is unless somebody comes and tells us. So transparency.
I'm glad you brought that up, because you know, over the years I have heard from various people that the reason why, especially in the high schools, is that the students have to, you know, they have to pick and choose. They can go to school for a certain amount of days, but then maybe they have to go home at a certain time and take care of their family because they have a parent that has to work, so they have to support their family. And I've heard that. I'm sure that happens in a lot of cases. But what the thing really baffles me is what we keep hearing in Manassas is that the students who aren't in school they walk across the railroad tracks and they hang around downtown and they skateboard and they hang out in front of the shops. And I can remember, and again, I date myself every time I start talking this, but I went to Prince William County high schools. I went to Hilton High School in Prince William County, and there was a guy who sat in a car and would run if I tried to leave early to go wherever, they want to know where the heck I was going, and they would say, "You can't leave. Where's your thing?" Why is this happening in Manassas, other than the fact that the downtown is so close, is so within walking distance of the high school? I mean, that's an obvious answer, but why is this being allowed to happen, where the kids can just go willy-nilly around town whenever they want, not be in class?
I'll answer that. From what teachers are telling me at the high school, because that's where this happens, right, is students teachers are assigned to the doorways, and they are not allowed to leave the building. But then we've got students who will just push the teacher aside or say very rude things to the teacher and walk out the door anyway. There's no consequence for the students. And when the teacher then reports it to administration, nothing happens. So I think if there is there's some focus on the process of when something like this happens, this is how we handle it. I think if that process improves, then we will see more and more kids staying in the school.
Actually, from our visit at the high school, if I'm not mistaken, it was earlier this week or last week. One of the reasons we heard from the high school kids was that they did not like lunch. So some of them actually will leave because it's, you know, the proximity is so close. They leave to have lunch and they go and buy, you know, across the street. And so last year when I talked to the kids, I heard that the other problem was the bathroom. Not every bathroom is open. So they also, you know, have to go and find a bathroom. And so, you know, so I think it's a variety of things that could be changed. But it all starts, as Ms. Williams said, with accountability. And I think that as a parent, I would like to know, because I have a high school kid, if my kid ever skips or, you know, leaves the school, right? And I can tell you, I have not be notified if my kid ever, left. And I, of course, this is more about, knowing if you know that there's a problem, you can address the problem. So I'm hoping that this year we have a new principal. She seems very organized. She seems very focused on, bringing us a lot of rules and a lot of improvement. So I'm really hoping to see that we're going to see a lot more consequences, when the kids are leaving, or at least a lot more discussions between the parents and the kids who might not be following, the school day. And so I know that we have now newsletters are coming in. So we're getting a lot of new information, which it's a huge improvement from last year. I can tell you it was hard for me, as Ms. Miles mentioned, knowing what's going on in the school. So I can tell you this year, we're getting a newsletter in Spanish and English, and we're knowing also about absenteeism, what counts, how many days you can have. And there was even suggestions and, times of the year when you can take vacation. So I think that might help. But, going back to the consequences, I think it will be good to know, when your kid is absent, just for lunch break, for example, not necessarily the entire day, which I know that's happening, so those short breaks where they leave the school, if parents are aware.
We have done so much reporting over the past few years about consequences or their lack thereof. We've seen vaping rise, problematic kids vaping in schools, and some of the bathrooms being closed. One of you mentioned that not all the bathrooms are open. We've seen in other high schools that they close the bathrooms because of those types of issues. And we've also heard from parents and from students who tell us that when someone is caught doing something or is taken out of class because they were doing something wrong and they were misbehaving, behavioral issue, whatever it was, they're right back in the same class in the same seat the very next day. And so one has to wonder about what type of morale, what type of environment does that set going forward, to know that if I'm here to learn and the kid in front of me continues to misbehave, become a distraction, whatever it is, to be a disruption, and nothing seems to be done about it, what does that do to the kids who are there to learn?
They eventually, start to, pick up bad habits, and I saw that quite a bit last year when I was at Baldwin Intermediate. There was roughly 10% of the kids, and I thought, okay, if we can get these kids, kind of under control, we have a chance to really have all the kids doing what we need them to do. But it's just a small percentage that are, for different reasons, and I'm not sure of those reasons, but they're allowed to persistently disrupt class. They come right back. And so it creates a situation where the kids who are there trying to learn, they almost have this sense of, what's the point? After a certain amount of time, like, what am I even trying to do anymore? And they lose their motivation and their interest and their passion. And I've had kids, talk to me about that, and they express their concern because they don't feel like it's fair to them. It wastes their time, essentially.
So is it on the parents? Is it on the administration? Is this something else we have to task to the teacher to crack down harder on getting the small percentage of the students to behave? What's the solution here, and who is part of that solution?
I would say, I know when I worked in the high school and we struggled with some of the behavior problems, when you partner with a parent and admin, that's when you solve the problems. But it can't be one-sided. It can't be the teacher doing everything and then you go to the admin, you share it with them, then you go to the parent and you share it with them, and no one wants to do anything. Because at the end of the day, a teacher can only do but so much. So it has to be like kind of that trifold where you have buy-in from the admin. I would call an administrator, they would come, they would take care of it. I would call a parent. And I had a student come to me and say, Miss, you called my parents. I said, yes, I called your parents because you will not act like this in my class. But obviously it doesn't always work like that, because I've had students before where the parent was not was not in the communication, and the admin and the teacher put their hands up. And it's sad because sometimes it gets that way if a parent decides that what we're saying is not important and how their kid is acting is not important, you know, that's on your job. So it really takes all three to really be in sync for it to be solved.
And can I chime in real quick, Uriah? I actually think it's along with everything, but it's also a systematic problem. So, you know, at Osborne, our students are available to earn 32 credits, but you only need up to 24 for your diploma. That leaves at least 6 classes that the kids know they don't have to be in. That accounts for our late arrival and our early release, and we have really high numbers. So redoing our school schedule, scheduling our kids correctly, we could open up to more electives. You know, having 2 math classes at the same time, one with 10 kids and one with 30, that's not equitable to our students or our teachers. So having these hard conversations and changing the ways we do some stuff over the summer to help our scheduling, opening up our CTEs and elective like the kids want. I'm super proud of our school system for offering 11 out of the 18 CTE classes per the state. However, I'm an overachiever. Let's aim for 18 or more. We just bought the Marsteller building from the city. We have this Dean building that we don't quite know what we're doing with. We could open up a CTE program, an alternative learning center to pull some of those kids out that maybe regular school isn't where they need to be. Looking at a more holistic approach is how I think we're going to fix some of these problems.
You bring up a good point. I want to transition and ask a question about, I do want to talk about CTE because it is a bright spot. And I've had interns from Manassas City Public Schools, personally worked for Potomac Local, and they've been fantastic. I have toured the CTE program at Osborne personally, and it is, I was thoroughly impressed by what I saw. So I do want to get to that, and I do want to talk about what is working. But to your point about a school of excellence, we've seen these in Prince William County where they have schools like that, where, you know, students who excel at a certain thing can go to a certain type of school, and we may not be talking about, you know, Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Fairfax County and that level. But Prince William County, we've seen specialty schools in that. We've seen some talk about wanting to set up that type of school for Manassas City. We've also heard some pushback from some of the sitting school board members saying, you know, we can't, you know, we should all be one, and we should provide equal opportunity to all of the students and not just a select few who excel. So you brought up a good point, Ms. Forkel, about turning that Marsteller, what was a Prince William County public school right there on Sudley Road. Now the city of Manassas has just come in and bought that. They have said they're going to make it into a community center, but there is, as I said, some talk about that, a specialty school. So do you, and I'll throw this out to the group here, do you think a specialty school is needed in the city, and what would that look like?
I'll chime in and then I'll let everybody else go. I don't know exactly how we would do this. You know, I think we have a lot of needs in the city because we're very unique. We have one middle school and one high school, but we could have a schedule that no one's ever done before. So maybe part of the day it is for the academic of excellence, and then for the latter half of the day it's for alternative school kids or our night school. You know, we have all these different options of how we could actually do this and be a frontier on something. But I think we have a lot of different needs in the city. And so maybe a rotating, you know, one wing or the second floor, kind of like Baldwin does. The upper level is their intermediate and the bottom level is their elementary. So maybe the upper floor is the school of excellence. One side is your CTE. On a different side, we have your alternative school, because I don't think we have as many kids who need that. And I do think that we could look at this approach differently for the needs of all of our students to make it more equitable.
I would say that I agree with Allie, Ms. Forkel. I would say that our city does need a community center. So it's really hard to talk about this in particular, just because we have a lot of needs. But that the Jennie Dean building, I think would be a great building to use because it's already ready to go. but we need the CTE program. So I think we really need to like sit down and talk about it. And before we make, you know, any major decisions, everyone needs to be sitting down and talking, and we need to talk to our teachers and hear what they have to say. Because I think what has happened in the past, especially like with the grading policy, we're just making these decisions and really not, you know, listening to the stakeholders. And we have to listen to our community and make sure that we're on target for what they believe our needs are. But I think there is a need for more CTE programs. I would say Pennington, which is actually in the zone of Manassas City, that's another thing people had talked about. I know we partner with Governor's School with Manassas Park and also Prince William for all of the Manassas City. Everyone has buy-in there. Why not open Pennington up for our Manassas City school students, for maybe 20 of our students who are able to go, just so that parents have options, because we have a lot of parents who are taking their kids out of our schools because they're not happy. And it isn't fair to those parents who aren't happy. We need to have more options for our parents because our schools are failing in a lot of ways. And so I think it is important to have options for our parents.
Let me ask about the CTE program. As I said earlier, you know, I've toured the program, toured the school. We've had interns from the program work here at Potomac Local, and it's, for me, it's been a positive experience. And so, Ms. Raquel, you noted the number of programs that the city is running for career and technical education. This does seem to be a bright spot for the school division. Is this, and I'll throw this out, is this something that the school division can continue to build on going forward? And I know, Ms. Forkel, you said that you'd like to see even more of these programs. Do you think that the schools can continue to build on it and promote it? At the same time, they're trying to get the academic thing in line, bring up those SOL scores, get these. At the same time, they're having that conversation. Can they walk and chew bubblegum at the same time? I guess is the question I'm asking.
I believe we can. We have amazing educators and amazing students. And you know what a lot of people don't know is I got my cosmetology license through our program at Osborne, and that encouraged me to pay more attention to chemistry because I hated chemistry, but I needed it to do services in cosmetology. And so being able to do this, we've talked to business owners. They want to expand our CT program. I know Eric Godwin is working really hard. I signed up. I'm a mentor now. I'll be in there helping our students and getting more internships open to them, paid and unpaid. And I'll let the others talk as well. But, you know, we've talked, if our kids love to be in Old Town so much, it's just a brisk walk to go learn a new skill and get a job, paid or unpaid. So I do think we could increase some partnerships we have for the betterment of our community.
And I can also share about my experience. I didn't go to Osborne, but I went to a similar school that had sort of like a CTE program. And in our school, it was mandatory. Everybody had to finish their high school with something. And that was because I grew up in a country that it's a developing country. And so they tend to start their families very young. And so a way to elevate their lifestyle and have them to, you know, support their families. The way that the government was approaching it was more on the let's educate these kids. And so our school days were a little longer, but everybody graduated with something to do. And so, you know, it allowed a lot of people that wanted to go to college and maybe couldn't afford to now have something to do, you know. And so I think it's important. And so what I would like to see is, you know, everybody benefiting. And as I mentioned a little earlier, what we found is that there's a lot more interest to do more. And so I would like to see us spending more money, expanding it, you know. And so what's great, you know, about it is that there's a lot of people already taking advantage of it, but I would like to see more, right? So one of the things that I heard from some parents is that their kids are interested in plumbing, you know, we need electricians. So I think that there's a lot of other, you know, opportunities for kids to learn. And, you know, even if they don't continue or pursue after high school, I think it's a good opportunity, you know, because when you own your house, you know, those are skills you're going to need. And so I think that where we can put our dollars should be, you know, building up those students, you know, for things that are useful.
you are the first person who talked about money and dollars, and this is probably a question that I should have asked earlier on in this hour. But over the course of our reporting this election season, we've been asking if the city council would be, which is the funding source, which is a key funding source for the school board in the city. For those who don't know, the city council is separate from the school board. Both are elected bodies, and the city council provides a majority of funding to the city school division through real estate property taxes. And the school division gladly takes that check every year and spends it how the school board sees fit. And the two really don't go back and forth on how it's spent. The council just writes the check, gives the money to the school board, and that is how it is. The school board allocates the funds. However, we have seen over the years, and I'll use Prince William County as an example, where the Board of County Supervisors entered into an agreement with the school board for classroom size reduction. Prince William County over the years has had some of the highest number of classroom sizes, about 35 per students per teacher. And the board said, well, listen, if you work on getting that number down, we will allocate additional funds to you for classroom size reduction, so you can solve that problem. And over the course of some of the interviews that I've had with someone who are running for city council, and I've asked the question, would you be willing to put in some sort of benchmarking for some sort of improvement, and whatever that might be? It could be score improvement, it could be anything. And some of the consensus, the general consensus I get for the incumbents on the city council, hey there, welcome. That's awesome. They're not willing to put those. They're not willing to do that, because we are reminded time and again that there is a firewall between the city council and the school board. So throwing that out there, if you're elected to the school board, and Ms. Williams, if you're elected to the city council, let's talk about how the school board could better work together to solve the issues, while maybe going back and working together on the money portion of the whole thing, because we've seen it happen in other jurisdictions.
I'll go first. Legally, a governing body or your funding body in the state of Virginia if you want to talk about benchmarking, I'm not a fan of benchmarking, but we would have 7 funding areas where we could allocate in 7 different areas to the schools in those specific areas. I think the schools are the best way. The schools themselves can manage their money, and they know where the best places to spend every dollar. I think where we could really work together a lot better, perhaps have discussions on a quarterly basis about what's working, what's not working. If the schools could really present data better to the city council can then prioritize their budget. Because you're right, if you're going to spend more money on schools, which every survey that I have read for the past several years, traffic seems to be number 1, schools number 2, and people seem to be on board to spend more money on their public school system. So perhaps we as a city council then need to prioritize their budget, and perhaps we make hard, tough decisions, and we don't put fund money some places so we can put it back into the school. But I think it's the camaraderie of the school board and the city council to have real conversations about what's working and what's not working, and come together so we can make sure we are able to provide everything that we've just talked about, a school of excellence. I agree 100%. We're missing plumbing, electric, HVAC. If we could get that in there. Currently, we're working on an aviation program. That's going to cost some money. It's not going to cost as much as you think, because we're all working together, Prince William County, Manassas Park City, and Manassas City. We've got private companies who are so excited about that they're going to fund the hangars out at the airport. So we've got a lot of excitement coming, especially with these types of higher end CTEs. But what's next should be these trays. The trays that these kids can come out of high school and really start making money, because we want our students to stay here, be able to afford apartments here in the city of Manassas. But it's going to take that camaraderie between the school board and the city. We're just going to have to work very differently. And I think with this new, with this election, if we do have a new majority on both sides, I think you're going to see a lot of changes.
Well, if the price of housing continues to increase in our area the way it has over the time immemorial, they're going to need one of those jobs in the trades, such as welding or something like that, just to afford to live in our area, because the price of housing. I really appreciate all your insights on everything we've talked about. As we wrap up here, I want to go around the horn, and I just want to get some closing remarks, and I'd like each of you to say one thing that is working with the school division, one bright spot, one thing that you love about the school division, because I'm injecting my personal belief in here that all of you are running for an office. You want to lead, you want to represent. And I personally believe that you have to love something enough to want to go and serve it. And if you don't love it, then you're not really invested in its future. So I would hope that you could tell us here something you really like or love about the school division, about the city. And we'll start with Miss Haley.
All right. It's hard to pick one thing, but our kids are amazing. They are just full of creativity, full of passion, full of hope. And, my time at Metz and Baldwin Intermediate, I probably taught roughly 300 kids. And so any kid that I teach, like, they become my kid, So for me, as I'm running, because I see those eyes looking back at me, questioning, wondering, what am I going to do? What did I do in the moment when I had an opportunity to do something to make change for the better? And that's something I always encourage in all of my students. Use your voice however you see fit to do something good for yourself and your community. And so our kids are the most important resource, and their future is worth fighting for. So for me, that's what it's all about.
Thank you, Miss Miles.
I would say our diversity is huge to me, and I love it. And I tell my son I'm excited for him as he gets older and goes to the different schools, and just seeing the teachers. As I talk to teachers, when I knock on doors, the teachers are really, really passionate about what they do. They're not motivated by the money. They're motivated just to make a difference in the lives of the students that they come across. And I love just the people in this community. I would just say that the reason why I'm running is so that I can make our schools work for all of us, so that no one has to leave Manassas City to look for a better school, but they can just have the great schools here in our community. And so that's my motivation. And the thing that I love the most is the diversity in our teachers and their passion.
Thank you, Miss Whitesell.
I would say for me, it has to be the community. I can tell you, it reminds me of where I grew up. It was a small town. Everybody knew each other. And so you knew, what the kids like, what they didn't like. You find people as you go and eat in restaurants. So I just love the town, and I love how everybody knows each other, building connections. And so to me, I'm looking to change how we, perceive our schools and how we integrate with each other. And so, I will have to say the entire community.
Thank you, Miss Forkel.
There are so many great things, and everybody stole my answers. But what I really love is all the opportunities we afford to our kids. Being one high school community in 10 square miles, we do really care about our kids, and I believe that everybody has the best interest for them. In the past 6 weeks that we've been in school now at Round, my daughter's come home with about 5 different clubs she could join. I now drive her early to school on Tuesday for course. I can decide to drive her to school early Thursday for robotics. And so offering all these things to our students, I think is amazing that we're able to do that being a small community. And, you know, I'm running because I grew up here. I love it here. I'm a grad. I was a teacher. I will now be here until the class of 2042. So I'm in it for the long haul, and I just want to make sure that all of our kids at all levels, and special ed's close to my heart with ESOL, that everybody has the same equitable opportunities all the way through their career at MCPS.
Thank you. And Ms. Williams.
All right, it's very difficult to go last. However, the community our school is in is amazing. And I will share with you that our staff is just incredible. As we have, and this is nothing, as I don't want to say anything that would hurt anybody's feelings, but as people begin to retire and choose to leave, and I'm really talking about the admin people because that's where I work closely with, given my position. The new hires that step in are amazing, and they care so much about our students and our community, and they give it their all. And that is it's just such an inspiring message to share, which I'm so happy to be sharing with you right now. The difference is just night and day, and it's really, I'm just really excited to share that with you. That's it.
Well, thank you. Caitlin, what do you like about Manassas?
Thanks. I didn't know if you'd ask me, but I was preparing my answer. I think since I stepped in and started reporting on the city of Manassas, I've just loved how dedicated everybody is. And just seeing how, you know, even when times get tough, you guys are all stepping in and wanting to be here and wanting to make this city better. I think that that's what, you know, local communities are all about. And I love reporting on Manassas. It's definitely an interesting place, and it's been fun to do it so far. And I can't wait to see what happens in a couple weeks.
And a couple weeks is Election Day. That is Tuesday, November 5th. If you're voting early, voting is underway at the voter registration office at City Hall. You can get down there and vote early. And of course, Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. There are 3 open seats on the City Council, and there are 4 open seats on the City School Board. We thank all of you for spending your evening with us on this forum here. We'll put this out on YouTube, on Facebook, on PotomacLocal.com. And those who are listening and watching and reading this, if you have ideas for other forums and other topics you would like us to talk about, we are here for you. We want to hear from you and get your feedback, because the more we talk about our community, the more we shine light on important topics, the better we all are served. And that is why Potomac Local was founded 14 years ago. And here we are today. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Manassas Schools Forum. Have a great day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Ryan.
you.
Caitlin.
She would.